Memory transcription subject, Chief Hunter ISIF, Arxur Dominion Sector Fleet. Date, Standardized Human Time, December 6, 2136. The Prophet descendant had grown irritated, as Shahza's spectacle dragged on at Silas. The female chief hunter had failed to mop up the human remnants, she had sacrificed her entire sector, and not even taken the planet she lost her assets to capture. So when Ghiznail summoned me to a physical location, I figured it was for my input on that debacle. What else could be too sensitive to discuss on comms? Before I returned to my duties, I parsed through Jones' tooth drive. The human general had included instructions on how to search for bugs. I turned my shuttle upside down before retrieving my secret holopad. My defective side compelled me to answer Felra, who had been persistent in checking in on me. We ended up chatting for hours. The Dosur discussed her favorite celebrities, her day's training to be a ship inspector, and how the war affected her, among other topics. Felra was unfazed by my non-answers. If anything, it seemed to encourage her nosiness. The prospect of discussing my life made me feel fraudulent and exposed. How could I ever explain anything genuine about myself? By the way, I'm the Arxur chief hunter responsible for the deaths of millions. Don't mind that. The Dosur sent a request for a video chat, and that paralyzed me in my seat. Just when I'd begun to ease my guard, there was the reminder that friendship was impossible. I told her that I was on the way to meet my boss, which I suppose was true. Felra, damn her, pleaded that a few minutes would make her day. Why wasn't I able to refuse that request? It took me a few seconds to set my video to off, and apply a voice modulator filter to my audio. This was all going to come to an end, when she asked why I'd switched off my camera and disguised my voice. There was no prey-like explanation to that effect. Sci-Fi. Oh, a young Dosur with ginger and white fur blinked onto my screen. Where's your video? You can't be that ugly, man. I showed my face. I drew a shuddering breath. Felra, I don't know how to say this. Robotic voice. Okay, not gonna lie, this is creepy. Are you actively hiding everything about yourself, or trying to be weird? It's better if the camera is off, and if you don't hear my real voice. I'm a predator. Felra was silent for a long moment, mulling over my confession. I could see the gears spinning in her beady eyes, before her nostrils twitched with surprise. The Dosur proceeded to express relief, followed by a bout of laughter. She gave me an encouraging ear flick, which wasn't the reaction I was expecting. You're a human, she exclaimed. That explains everything, why you're so closed off and peculiar. No offense. I wondered what you all were like. I recoiled in my pilot's seat, hissing in disbelief. That was not the interpretation I intended for her to take, but I suppose it was a good cover. Perhaps that would lend an excuse for my social ineptitude, though it was unfair to the Terran's reputation. Humans were more than capable of chatting it up, and mimicking emotions in appropriate ways. Felra is definitely going to have the wrong impression of humans. If she talked to one of them, she'd never have suspected a thing. I decided not to confirm or deny her assertion. What do you think of humans? Well, I think if you'd befriend a species like the Dosur, you can't be all bad. Even the Arxur recognize that we're shitty cattle, she answered. Oh, and I think it was shit that the crocodile attacked your homeworld. I can see why you have some walls up talking with an alien, just saying, wasn't us. Wait, so you're not bothered by me being a predator? I'm not anything like an average human, to be frank. My emotions deviate far from a Terran baseline. You told me you deserve to be alone, and I'll assume it was because of that. I'm sorry that your culture made you feel that way. If you feel safe reaching out to me, I'm honored. I see. And the Federation? What do you think of them? I understand the whole cultural tampering, and that I should feel hatred, but honestly, we would have never industrialized without their uplift. How would we build great machines from scratch? Even walking, we use carts to traverse alien cities. I guffawed in spite of myself, picturing this creature perched on a motorized stand. Felra made a valid point about the Dossers' debt to the Federation. Had those meddlers not noticed the native wildlife bore signs of sapience, Mil-O would be a different planet today. In their particular case, outside intervention was necessary to facilitate their advancement. Felra flashed her tiny front teeth. Don't laugh at me. Let me guess, humanity will look down on us for our size? Ah, I cannot speak for Earth, I growled awkwardly. My assessment is that many Terrans will want to pick you up or pet you. Humans think small animals are cute. But you don't? I don't debase myself by infantilizing creatures. It's not something I've given active thought to. Testy, are we? I am insulted by the premise. As if I could find an alien cute, and do that whole fawning expression and baby voice. I wouldn't mind. I bet you could do it well. Please, show me this baby voice. No filter. Grr. Very few herbivores try to rile up a predator. Well, I'm a special gal, sci-fi. You're sure funny when you're fired up. I am tired of this conversation. I said I was only speaking for a little bit, and I don't want to hear from you for a few hours. I hung up with a huff, refocusing on the landing protocols. Despite my best attempts to scare Felra off, I'd only seemed to invite provocation. With such important tasks ahead, I needed to quash whatever of my defective side had arisen. Prophet Descendant Giznoll was hosting our meeting in an unmanned station, and he had just confirmed my docking request. Focusing on neutralizing my expression, I steeled myself for Betterment's unavoidable demands. My shuttle coasted down at a leisurely pace. The time to clear my thoughts was welcome. If Giznoll ever learned that I was befriending prey for my sector, he'd see that my head was removed from my shoulders. There could only be my fanatic persona among my people. Imagine how much better life would be, if I were a human. I wouldn't have all this baggage to my name. The shuttle slotted into the docking clamps, and I heaved a weary sigh. At least my disdain for Shaza didn't require acting. If I could persuade Giznoll to withdraw from Silas, that would take a weight off the UN's back. There was also valuable information I could attain for General Jones. It was my role to keep Earth apprised of threats. Giznoll was without his normal guards, and I contemplated whether I could get away with killing him. Betterment likely knew who he was meeting with today. He'd be replaced by a descendant not as partial to me. Assassination was a surefire way to blow my cover. I disembarked, dipping my head with respect. Isif. We are alone here, Giznoll hissed. I have important matters to discuss, free of lesser ears. I narrowed my eyes. Hallowed Prophet. Drop the Venmalshit. I know everything. The Dominion leader's proclamation chilled my bones, and the debate of whether to strike him down renewed in my mind. Giznoll said on the call that he doubted my loyalty. He didn't believe I was willing to clash with the Terrans. Perhaps General Jones had been right about me tipping my true allegiance off to Betterment. Was this the moment where I'd be executed for my defectiveness? I don't know what you mean, your savageness, I growled evenly. Giznoll bared his teeth. I think you do. I wondered why you coddle the humans, and I knew it was more than Shaza's report stated. You imitate them and chase after them at every turn. But now I get it, you think they're smarter than us. I beg your pardon. You heard me. I couldn't make sense of it, until I replayed our conversation during the prisoner execution. You talked about maximizing our resources and obtaining entire planets as our catch. I did, but I don't see you think the humans can solve all our problems. You think they're smarter, and they hunt in the optimal way. Those cerulean pets you took were given to the Terrans to earn goodwill. Tell me I'm wrong, Isif. No, I suppose you're not. Perhaps this is treasonous, but we could do better. The humans can feed us, and I could make it happen. There's the truth. Then, we can conquer the Federation and go on our merry way, yes. Stronger. Capable. Fear surged in my veins, but I met Gizno's stare with feigned impassivity. The prophet descendant was off on the extent of my motives, though he'd discerned some of the truth. Questioning betterment was the highest form of treason. I had just admitted that I didn't think the Arxer way was the superior one. My champions were empathetic, leaf-licking predators. Why hadn't he signed me up for execution? You're right that humans could alleviate our food shortages. But you're wrong about it making the Dominion stronger, Gizno said. What? That wasn't what he was supposed to say. The prophet descendant heaved a sigh. If we get fat and lazy, Isif, we will be susceptible to future attacks. You don't appreciate what you don't have to struggle for. With respect, the humans are a strong culture, and they're well-fed. A warrior culture. The humans have weak individuals, because they have a cushion to provide for them. What happens to betterment when the food problem is resolved? How do we keep the masses on the right path? Cruel one, are you saying that you want our people to starve? Precisely. It keeps them dependent on us, and hating the Federation. The prey aren't fully to blame for our woes, but the masses don't need to know that. You mean because we don't try to solve the food problem? No. Isif, the prophets, and our inner circle have kept this secret close to the vest. Never mention what I'm about to tell you to anyone, yes. It was difficult to process this rhetoric, but I tilted my head to show I was listening. The Federation had admitted their culpability when Niconas discussed the meat allergy serum. Was Gizno implying that betterment was complicit in the cure spread? That was not a logical conclusion, since the volunteers weren't weeded through as a culling of the weak. My silence can be counted on, your savageness. I am honored, I managed. Gizno lashed his tail against the floor. Very well. The Federation was fully responsible for the cure, which caused many Arxer to starve. The Northwest Bloc, under the Prophet's guidance, seized the moment to weaken the Morvim Charter. How so? The cattle virus was unleashed on the Charter's livestock by us. The cure was the perfect cover. We could blame it on the aliens, and not break the truce. But it spread across our borders, somehow. We lost our food to our own bioweapon. It wasn't all the Kolshians. So billions of Arxer starved, because of rivalries from the World War? No, I suppose you're not. Perhaps this is treasonous, but we could do better. The humans can feed us, and I could make it happen. There's the truth. Then, we can conquer the Federation and go on our merry way, yes. Stronger. Capable. Fear surged in my veins, but I met Gizno's stare with feigned impassivity. The prophet descendant was off on the extent of my motives, though he'd discerned some of the truth. Questioning betterment was the highest form of treason. I had just admitted that I didn't think the Arxer way was the superior one. My champions were empathetic, leaf-licking predators. Why hadn't he signed me up for execution? You're right that humans could alleviate our food shortages. But you're wrong about it making the Dominion stronger, Gizno said. What? That wasn't what he was supposed to say. The prophet descendant heaved a sigh. If we get fat and lazy, Isif, we will be susceptible to future attacks. You don't appreciate what you don't have to struggle for. With respect, the humans are a strong culture, and they're well-fed. A warrior culture. The humans have weak individuals, because they have a cushion to provide for them. What happens to betterment when the food problem is resolved? How do we keep the masses on the right path? Cruel one, are you saying that you want our people to starve? Precisely. It keeps them dependent on us, and hating the Federation. The prey aren't fully to blame for our woes, but the masses don't need to know that. You mean because we don't try to solve the food problem? No. ISIF, the prophets, and our inner circle have kept this secret close to the vest. Never mention what I'm about to tell you to anyone, yes. It was difficult to process this rhetoric, but I tilted my head to show I was listening. The Federation had admitted their culpability when Nick Onus discussed the meat allergy serum. Was Gizmo implying that Betterment was complicit in the cure spread? That was not a logical conclusion, since the volunteers weren't weeded through as a culling of the weak. My silence can be counted on, your savageness. I am honored, I managed. Gizmo lashed his tail against the floor. Very well. The Federation was fully responsible for the cure, which caused many Arxer to starve. The Northwest Bloc, under the Prophet's guidance, seized the moment to weaken the Morvim Charter. How so? The cattle virus was unleashed on the Charter's livestock by us. The cure was the perfect cover, we could blame it on the aliens, and not break the truce. But it spread across our borders, somehow. We lost our food to our own bioweapon. It wasn't all the Kolshians. So billions of Arxer starved, because of rivalries from the World War? Gizmo's theory made gruesome sense, the longer I contemplated it. It explained why the Kolshians mounted a bold-faced offensive on Terran allies, but never went after Dominion worlds and outposts. The United Nations wasn't content to raid a few planets and call it a day, nor did they plot a forever war for control. The humans sought peace and reconciliation, and that made them an immediate threat. Zhao wants to destroy the Federation. Add in exposing the truth about omnivores, humans set that in motion. That theory holds water. I blinked my eyes, and my thoughts drifted to Felra. The Dosur were at risk of attack just for siding with the humans. Our cruelty helps the ringleaders keep the other prey afraid. Gizmo chuckled to himself. I knew you would get it, Isif. You're more cunning than Shaza, so I'm asking you for a favor. Do you still think you can handle humans? Of course I do. I'm not the chief hunter that lost my sector to them. Then handle this fucking mess. I want the Battle of Silas ended at once, with as many assets recovered as possible. If you think you can talk the monkeys into a truce, do it. Easy enough. It's not my sector though. What do I do about Shaza's forces? Those are your forces now. I'm putting her sector under your control, effective immediately. While you're getting a handle on the situation, dispose of Shaza. It will be handled, cruel one. I will summon my fleet and leave for Silas at once. The Prophet descendant watched with calculating eyes, as I clambered back into my shuttle. The advice that endangered my cover had earned me greater power today. In retrospect, negotiating with the humans was the less humiliating option. There was a lot to unpack from the Dominion's secrets, but my first order of business was eliminating Shaza. Getting the United Nations to cease hostilities would be the most difficult part. However, a continuing battle was not beneficial to Earth's cause. Humans were a spiteful bunch, but I'd try my best to find a diplomatic resolution. Memory transcription subject, Chief Hunter Isif, Arxer Dominion Sector Fleet. Date, Standardized Human Time, December 7, 2136. Prophet Descendant Gizmo, it turned out, had taken the liberty of mobilizing my fleet to a nearby location. With a strike force already assembled, it was a short voyage to Scylla system. FTL disruptors were active solely within the bounds of the planet's gravity well. The Terrans didn't expect us to bring reinforcements. It was known to the United Nations that our warlords acted independently to each other. I suppose they knew it was an exercise in futility, even if FTL disruptors had smacked us out of transit. The battle would be lost for the humans as soon as new ships arrived, since the Arxer's solitary nature didn't prevent us from joining in. To be candid, I couldn't comprehend how Earth's measly showing had resisted Shaza's bruisers this long. The Terrans had a lot of metal in them. The Arxer Dominion will respect their tenacity and gumption, if a bit grudgingly. I question whether the humans will fight to the last man though. As my fleet entered real space, we ensured that our forces were positioned out of firing range. I didn't want to get dragged into the fight before I could open a channel. The Terrans were shooting Arxur vessels on sight, and they would assume we were bailing out Shaza. I had to assure them my intentions ran against this sector's chief hunter. The UN vessels swiveled to face us, rather than panicking like prey crews. During our arrival, they hadn't been engaged with Shaza's forces. The humans were content keeping the enemy at bay. The stubborn primates must realize they were backed into a corner now, which would force them to the negotiating table. "Attention, all Arxur vessels in the system," I growled into my comms, ensuring that my channel was unencrypted. "This is Chief Hunter Isif. By order of Betterment, I am assuming control of your fleet. You are to immediately stand down and await further instruction. I say again, cease all hostile actions." The Dominion vessels marauding Silas halted the meticulous bombing, and I was surprised by their lack of hesitation. Shouldn't there have been a power struggle, as Shaza issued a counterorder? Gauging by her personality, that Chief Hunter would never respect my decree to stand down. I studied the viewport in shock, before extending a hail to the human fleet. A female Terran, with reddish hair that halted just shy of her shoulders, accepted my call. Hostility was written on her countenance, though sleep deprivation was visible in her puffy eyes. The UN officer bared her teeth all the same, and stared down the camera. I was unimpressed by humans attempting intimidation on me. "I recognize you. The famed Captain Monahan, savior of Kwa," I said in a sugary voice. "After that success, I'm not surprised you're first in line for combat negotiations." Monahan's scowl deepened. "What is it you're seeking?" "A ceasefire. I wish to negotiate an immediate end to hostilities and regain control of our assets." "Is that an amenable proposition to the United Nations?" "There will be no end of hostilities, not while you're taking humans as cattle. We'd rather take a lot of you with us, than let you make off with our men and women." "What? We don't take you as cattle. Are there prisoners or, ahem?" "Excuse me one moment." The human captain's eyes fluttered with surprise, and she inspected my mannerisms for several seconds. As I scrambled through a log of internal communications, a video message was forwarded from the UNS Rocinante. Monahan had relayed the information for me. I hastily listened to Shaza's transmission. Shock must have been visible on my agape maw, but I couldn't force it shut. Had that maniacal chief hunter actually threatened to corral humans like Venlo? No wonder the United Nations was digging in their heels with such spite. That also explained why this sector's Dominion forces complied with my takeover. Shaza alienated her own troops by trying to eat fellow predators. After the Terrans fended off such an overzealous attack, there was no way of classing them as prey. The average soldier knew this action wouldn't be condoned by Betterment. It flies against our entire ideology of superiority. It's next to cannibalistic. I drew a shuddering breath. The captives' release will be facilitated by me, personally. On behalf of the Arxur Dominion, I can assure you we do not support this act in any way. I apologize for Shaza subjecting humans to degrading conditions, which are becoming only of prey. Only becoming of prey? My qualifier served to make Monahan recoil in disgust. So if there's an herbivore who served with us, captured, you won't release them? That's not good enough. I should think the release of all humans is a good start. Everyone under the UN emblem is equal to us. I am not trading lives with you. Some is more than none, yes. I knew leaving their newfound allies, such as the Venlo, to die was a non-starter from the United Nations. However, Gizmo would have my hide if he discovered I'd released the prey with no pushback. It also would suit my motives to gain food in return, given the sector's depleted cattle farms. Betterment might be happy with starvation, but I wish to resolve that issue for any troops under my control. A full belly was one way to buy loyalty for a future rebellion. General Jones would understand why I drove a hard bargain with the UN, and why I had to accumulate as many assets as possible. However, it was unclear if the average Terran officer was amenable to hardball. The female human on screen had tensed up again. She was digging her fingernails into her seat. Captain Monahan pursed her lips. "We have nothing to talk about, since you won't budge from that stance." "If you don't like my offer, you could make a counter," I said. "I am just supposed to guess at what you want. Make it worth my while, and I'll consider returning your prey creatures." "I don't know what you want." "I presume to bomb Silas unimpeded. The Tillfish attacked your cradle world. You asked us to retaliate against your aggressors. There's no TSSK, takebacks as you say. I find your attempts to distance yourselves from this fiasco immature. The United Nations will never condone genocide. We're not on their level. That was a regrettable gamble, in which we had no choice. You were quite happy to accept my ships, human, when I saved your Earth. Don't let your short memories fail you now. There would be no fleet to fight Shaza and her Sivkit-brained ensemble without me." The Terran captain's glower faltered. "That was you?" "Yes. I rescued your species from functional extinction. I had you at my mercy, and I let you be. I think you will find that my policies align with your interests. So I'll state my demands forthright, but you are going to listen. For Earth, I will humor you. Our devastating losses could have been worse. Much worse." The medals pinned to Monahan's uniform had tipped me off to her participation in humanity's last stand. It was a relief that the reminder of my aid went over better than it had with Secretary General Zhao. Perhaps some lab-grown meat and a territorial concession would be palatable to the Terran higher-ups. All Gizl demanded was ending the battle and getting the sector back under our control. As long as I achieve his stated ends, I'll appear more competent than Shaza. Not that that's saying much. I narrowed my eyes to slits. You've taken much from us. The return of this sector, alongside a non-aggression pact with Arxer outposts under my domain, is non-negotiable. We know what you'll do to those sapients you had. Returning them to your custody is unethical, and would be a ghastly reflection on the UN. Forget the cattle. I expect compensation. I want some of the farm animals in your possession on Earth, the ones you certainly don't have just for specialty meats. I don't know what you're talking about. Learn quickly. Otherwise, I might accidentally leak a dossier on factory farming and safari hunting to Zerulean communications satellites. I'm sure you wouldn't want that. The color drained from Monahan's cheeks. That is quite unnecessary. It will be, when you comply with my reasonable requests. All Terran ships will stand down at once. In return, I will retrieve any UN captives, including non-humans, for you. We will leave Silas, but I expect future negotiations on that concession, so we're just supposed to stand down, and trust that you'll hand over our side of the deal later? Precisely, because I keep my word. There is precedent. I return the Venlil cattle per a similar arrangement. If I say I'll return your people, consider it done. What about the Tillfish civilians? They were under our protection. You people make no sense. Fine, you can have your human-killing bugs. But there better be more heads of cattle that we get back than we gave away. I'll take that into consideration, Isif. Is that all? For now. Go call the higher-ups with those FTL comms you definitely don't have access to. I'll be waiting. I terminated the call, satisfied at the threats I'd chosen to lobby at Captain Monahan. Sharing their predatory traits with their allies wasn't something the UN did in laborious detail. However, humans being kept as cattle was unacceptable to me, even if a deal wasn't solidified. Gesturing to an underling, I summoned a shuttle bound for Shaza's fleet. A security detail accompanied my transport, equipped to handle any resistance. It took a few seconds to fire off an encrypted transmission, requesting the locations of Shaza and her human captives. Dominion vessels did not fire upon my transport. Acknowledgements flooded in, kowtowing to my status. Arrogant as ever, the female chief hunter had Terran prisoners routed to her personal command ship. That placed both of my objectives in the same location. Genuine anticipation of the kill thrummed in my chest. It would be delightful not to feign pleasure during an execution. Eliminating Shaza was a step forward for my species. What kind of Arxer got bested by feisty predators, and reacted with vulgar threats? Betterment would never support her actions, which were unbecoming even of their office. My pupil scanned the command ship, which was a bulky giant with gratuitous armor. Ornaments resembling prey heads decorated the hull, and multiple decks allowed for a hearty amount of cattle on board. My shuttle was dwarfed by the colossal ship. Its size was impractical in combat action. The rogue chief hunter cared too much for projecting strength, enough to sacrifice all mobility. As I closed in on Shaza's command post, the human fleet reopened a hail. My patience had been dwindling with their government. This wasn't the time for deliberation. It shouldn't be difficult for Captain Monahan to relay a straight answer. The social predators shouldn't be chattering amongst themselves during a crisis. General Jones claimed humans don't want war with the entire Dominion. The UN has to work with me for that reason. Monahan breathed a flustered sigh. I'll get to the point. Secretary General Zhao signed off on the deal, if you throw in one sweetener. Transfer Shaza to our custody. Oh, that is your kicker. I could not care what happens to her, I chuckled. We are much like independent warlords on your world. I was going to execute her, but I suppose that also fits my orders to dispose of her. Excellent. While I have your attention, Zhao asked me to tell you something else. He says he is sorry for his conduct. Whatever that means. Well, I think your species cherishes empty words more than mine does. I'll arrange the transfer, human. Don't do anything stupid. I cut the transmission once more, and reminded myself that it was irrational to hold a grudge. Still, I had zero interest in reassessing Zhao's affronts on a call. General Jones had misled him, but that didn't erase the fact that he treated me like an animal. If the UN leader saw all Arxer as savages, that wasn't something I intended to forgive lightly. Then again, if I considered it with sincerity, Felra would say the same things about me, and worse. My friendship with the Dosur was a grave error of judgment. The fact that she assumed any cordial predator was a human spoke volumes about our repute versus theirs. Everyone thought we were monsters who deserved what happened to us. Considered that our plight was somewhat self-inflicted, they might be right. A jolt rippled through the shuttle, as we latched onto Shaza's command ship. I gestured for my security detail to raise their weapons, my paw hovered over my sidearm as well. But no gunfire greeted us upon entry, nor was there any sign of hostile intent. Instead, a wall of guards had the disgraced chief hunter on her knees. Her right eye was bloodied and swollen shut, which presented some obvious questions. Shaza looked indignant, despite the pistol planted against her skull. Isif. Those insolent apes just wouldn't let it go. They're chest-beating monkeys with nothing but cheap tricks. Any normal Arxer would respect a worthy opponent in combat. Tell me, why do you think your people are so eager to restrain you? The humans need to be humbled. My minions here don't see that I had to impart that lesson, in a way they'd remember. Oh, they'll remember all right. We do not eat fellow sapients. There is one other predator in the galaxy, and you cannot treat them with respect. They're stupid and emotional. It's their weakness. When they see their kind herded up, it will break them. I suspect your ploy merely pisses the humans off, Shaza. Nice shiner you've got there, is it not? Quit your mockery. The one I took as my personal meal, it jabbed its thumb in my eye and started twisting. Awful wretch. I carved it up very slowly for that. Those predators scream just the same as Venmo, though the taste leaves something to be desired. A wave of cold disgust washed over me. You actually ate a human? Yes, very chewy. Listen, those captives might keep fighting today, but they will give up and cower in time. Let the cattle experiment go on. Surely betterment. I lunged at the chief hunter, throwing my maw into the side of her temple. Shaza crumpled into a heap, and my hide quivered with revulsion. It would be ironic to torture her into screaming like a Venlil now. That would invalidate her prior argument. Pain wasn't exclusionary to prey, after all. It was a shame the humans requested her alive, so I couldn't have any fun breaking her will. My gaze swept around the room, inspecting her forces. The Battle of Silas is over. Betterment would rather point our guns at prey than predators. We'd rather eat prey than predators. If any of you have a problem with that, there are several airlocks with your name on it. I suggest you use them. The assembled Dominion soldiers nodded, and hauled the unconscious Shaza to her feet. My security detail helped them cart her onto a transport. Bindings were applied to her lithe form, ensuring that she couldn't stir up mayhem. I debated how to return the human cattle, without having them gouge out our eyes. It needed to be crystal clear that we were not aligned with the former chief hunter. Ready that transport, and prep several more. Load all UN captives on there, unharmed and of their own volition, I growled. Before you release any penned humans, please reiterate that we're there to free and return them. State that we have an explicit agreement with their government. Also, allow them to fly the shuttles back to their fleet on their own. One of my security guards bared his teeth. What happens when they see Shaza on the first ship? Tell them that the human cattle was her idea, and she's a rogue warlord. Also tell them, they can do whatever they want with her. She was left on that shuttle as a gift. The Arxer underling chuckled to himself, picturing the furious humans brutalizing her. I found Shaza's circumstances quite amusing as well. This was likely not what Secretary General Zhao had in mind by asking me to hand her over to UN custody. But on a technical level, my decision was in full compliance with his request. I'd fulfilled my end of the bargain, while having some malicious fun at her expense. Once this situation was resolved, the humans could return their attention to the Federation. That was where their focus belonged. It would also save me from the awkward position of mediating this dispute. My next priority was heading to a dead drop location, so that General Jones could learn what Gizmal had revealed. Perhaps the Terrans could devise a way to utilize the information for insurgency.